On a cold and lonely night in the wilderness of Wyoming, near the Wind River Indian Reservation, an indigenous girl is seen crying and running without shoes through the snow. The film jumps to the next day, when we see a quiet man named Corey Lambert, a banished local hunter who is hunting a wolf while dressed all in white. Corey is a wildlife and fisheries department guard. He goes to Lander to pick up his son Casey from his ex-wife, who is indigenous, and they seem to get along well, but are very careful with their son. Corey takes Casey to the Indian reservation, where he will stay with his maternal grandparents while his mother is away. Corey learns from Casey's grandfather about a predator in the area that has just killed one of his cows. Corey concludes from the clues that this was the work of a lioness and her two cubs, showing that he is good at analyzing tracks. He follows a trail of blood and footprints in the snow until he finds a body with a gunshot wound to the head and frozen feet. Corey, who was hunting lions, discovers that the victim is the same girl who appears at the beginning of the film and notifies the Indian Reservation Police, who call the FBI. Corey and Ben, the police chief who has only half a dozen officers on the reservation, await the FBI's arrival. Jane Banner appears in the middle of a snowstorm, clearly unprepared for that weather and needing more warm clothes to avoid freezing to death. Casey's grandmother offers some clothes that belong to her deceased granddaughter. Corey had a daughter about the same age as the dead girl. They go by snowmobile to where the body was found. Corey confirms that the body is of Natalie Hansen, an 18-year-old girl. Jane suspects violence after examining the deceased and finding blood in the intimate region. Hey, the movie I'm going to summarize is called Wind River. It's a film that mixes suspense, drama, and mystery. It's a great film and I bet you'll like it. That's why I'm already inviting you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave that like to receive the best recaps. Jane Banner asks if there are any locations nearby. Corey responds by mentioning a drug spot and an oil platform as the closest locations in the area from where Natalie might have escaped. He then recreates Natalie's death by observing the footprints. The greater depth in front of the marks indicates that she was probably fleeing. He continues by saying that the air at -20 degrees Celsius caused her lungs to burst during the night, making her fall to the ground and spit blood. But she kept running until her last breath. Everything fits together for the agent, and after realizing Corey's abilities, she requests that he assist in the investigation. They return to Lander and visit the medical examiner's office, where they obtain medical confirmation of Corey's statements. According to the medical examiner, Natalie suffered serious injuries caused by several unidentified people. Jane wants to find out who killed Natalie, but since the case wasn't considered a homicide, she doesn't have the support of an FBI team to investigate it. She still risks being removed from the mission, as the FBI has no authority over the crime scene. Jane relies on Ben and Corey's help to visit Natalie's parents, Martin and Annie. Natalie was dating someone whose name her father didn't even know. Jane gets angry at the father's lack of care for his daughter and accuses him of being guilty, provoking the anger of the grieving man. It's also no use talking to the mother, as she is so distressed that she is self-harming. Corey becomes one of Martin's closest friends and seeks to share with him his experiences about losing his daughter, supporting him in overcoming the trauma he is suffering, embracing and comforting his pain. Martin, knowing of Corey's involvement in the investigation, lights a cigarette and asks his friend for revenge, even though Corey was already going to do it. Corey, Jane, and Ben head to the house closest to the crime scene in search of evidence. Sam's decrepit house, a drug addict who uses the house as a refuge. When Jane and Ben are distracted, Sam sprays pepper spray on them, making them fall into a coughing. Two addicts try to escape through the back door but are hit by Corey's shovel. Jane takes a deep breath and chases Sam through the house. With blurred vision, Sam suddenly appears and shoots at Jane, who misses the shots. But she manages to hit him several times and kill him on the spot. Chip Henson, Natalie's violent brother, is later revealed as one of the men in the house. He can't control his crying upon discovering that his sister died. His jumbled words, however, help Jane discover that Natalie's companion was a white man who wasn't from the area. Corey, on the other hand, finds snowmobile tracks leaving the house and decides to follow the tracks with Jane because Natalie's body was found after that hill. They come across another body half buried in the snow while climbing the mountain, this time a man who was partly devoured by vultures. At the residence where drugs were sold, the boys don't want to give any clues, preferring to go to jail than stay on the reservation, until Corey decides to talk with Natalie's brother, whom he has known since childhood. Chip blames the place where they live, what happened to him and his sister, but Corey disagrees, saying that, unlike most local inhabitants, he could have chosen a better life by entering university or the army. When Chip talks to Corey about not protecting his daughter, the argument becomes violent and he gets beaten up. Finally, Chip reveals who Natalie's boyfriend was, called Matt, a security guard at one of the extraction sites, who was about Corey's age. Corey receives an invitation to go with them to one of the extraction sites the next day, but he refuses, saying he has other plans for later. Later, Jane goes to Corey and reveals the identity of the dead man, Matt Rayburn, a security guard at the extraction site. This makes it clear that the body is Natalie's boyfriend, whose name Chip had mentioned before. Jane wants to know why Corey is helping her, and she understands when she sees pictures of his daughter. Corey tells the sad story of his daughter Emily, something similar to what happened to Natalie 3 years ago when she was just a 16-year-old girl. Corey, who worked as a salesman, was planning to spend a night alone with his wife at a hotel, but they soon received news about Natalie, Emily's close friend, that she had disappeared. Corey ends the story saying that his daughter was found torn apart by wolves. He tried to hold his emotions for 3 years, but finally starts to cry. Now we understand the reason for his divorce. His relationship after the incident was probably just a trigger. He became a hunter because of what happened, perhaps to track the beasts that devoured his daughter, or to find the possible culprits. Jane apologizes and goes to the bathroom, shaken by the terrible events that occur in the area. Later, she finds one of Emily's poems, showing that she was an excellent poet. The voice heard at the beginning of the film is Emily reciting her poem. Corey returns to the mountain the next day to investigate more about Matt's homicide. Jane and Ben head downhill to the oil extraction site with 4 deputies, and the head of security receives them. When asked about Matt's whereabouts, he says he hopes they find him, as Matt disappeared after an argument with his girlfriend. At the same time, Jane sees bruises on his face and on the faces of the other officers who appear afterward. Jane continues to have doubts, even after they say the bruises were the result of collisions with trees while going down the hill. Jane uses a deception tactic against the guards on the way to Matt's room. She says that Natalie is alive and reported her boyfriend's disappearance to test their reaction. The head of security is startled, saying it's impossible because he heard on the radio that they found her body. Jane becomes more suspicious and says that the identity of the deceased wasn't disclosed on the radio. At that moment, one of the deputies notices the guards surrounding them. He panics, and there's a confrontation when everyone pulls out their weapons. Jane calms the situation and makes everyone behave thanks to her elevated FBI status compared to the other officers. Jane walks to the trailer where the workers slept, including Matt, and knocks on the door forcefully. The film suddenly returns to Natalie's previous night, and we see Matt receiving Natalie with a smile. After their hug and kiss, the scene cuts to them in bed, talking about their plans for the future. Matt's drunk friends arrive at the trailer talking loudly. Natalie quickly closes the curtain, but one of the men, Pete, who is very intoxicated, opens it again and starts bothering the couple, questioning what they were doing. Then, he makes a joke and tries to look under the sheets, which irritates Matt, who jumps from the bed and kicks him. Pete, in contrast, shows no fear. He talks about his desire to have participated in the act. At the same time, one of the men racially offends Natalie, provoking her reaction to punch him in the face. Pete uses the opportunity and pulls off Natalie's pants. A fight breaks out after Matt lands some hits on Pete, and the two groups clash. Natalie runs to help her boyfriend, but they both take heavy blows to the head and lose consciousness. Natalie soon regains consciousness and realizes that Pete is taking advantage of her. When Matt comes out of unconsciousness and sees this, he goes after Pete again. Finally, we watch everyone beating Matt and Natalie escapes, aware that there's no way to save her boyfriend. It was at this time that she ran out desperately to escape, but ended up dying. Jane continues knocking on the door and shouting FBI in the present time. At the same time, Corey observes snowmobile tracks going from the drilling site to where they found Matt, showing that the guards dragged Matt's body there after killing him, and tried to mislead the investigation by trying to blame the drug addicts for Matt's death, going down the mountain on a road that led to Sam's house. He tries to warn Ben about the guards. However, before Jane can distance herself from the entrance, there's a loud noise and a bullet hits her chest. The security guards start shooting at the tribal police. The two groups enter into an intense shootout, but the guards get the upper hand and eliminate all the police officers. The impact hurt Jane, but her bulletproof vest saved her. While she tries to reload her rifle, the head of security snatches it. A bullet pierces his trunk before he can shoot. Corey reveals himself as the mysterious shooter who was hidden in the snow. He eliminates the other guards without mercy while they search for him. Corey shoots at the trailer, hitting another guard, but Pete manages to escape through the window and runs to the mountains. Corey chases him through the mountains after helping Jane. Pete hears the sound of a snowmobile and tries to locate its source. Corey takes advantage of his distraction and knocks him out with his weapon. When Pete regains consciousness, he finds himself without shoes at the top of the mountain, with his toes freezing. Corey gives him a second chance if he admits what they did. Corey keeps his promise when Pete admits to killing Matt and raping Natalie, letting him go and saying that Natalie ran 6 miles in the snow without shoes and that he doubted he could walk even 600 feet. Corey tells Pete to run, but he can only take a few steps before the cold air tears his lungs, just like what happened to Natalie. He falls to the ground and dies on the spot, breathing with difficulty. Corey is seen talking to Jane in the hospital. In the next scene, she feels lucky to have escaped, while he thinks luck doesn't exist on the reservation. He thinks that in this place, you live if you have the necessary soul and grit, or you die if you don't. Jane cries, remembering Natalie's 9.5-kilometer run in temperatures below zero to save her life. Corey later visits Martin and sees that he has his new expression of death, showing that he was about to kill himself. Corey reveals how he avenged each of those guilty of Natalie's murder to ease his pain, especially the man who raped Natalie and regretted it at the time of death. Martin becomes sad and asks his friend to share his grief with him, as losing a daughter in such a cruel way changed his way of seeing sadness. This made one of them stronger, while it led the other to reflect on the fate of things. So that's it. Below in the first pinned comment, I'm going to leave a playlist of suspense movies. Take a look and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to receive daily summaries. So until the next recaps,